Well, folks, in the wise words of an NFL franchise, where else would you rather be than right here, right now? This is so exciting. Welcome in, everybody. We are live tonight from a beautiful backdrop at the Erie Insurance Arena for a live podcast tonight here on the Gem City Sports Network. Isaac Petcash, Paul Adamczak. Man, this is such a fun time tonight. We've only been here a few minutes, and it already feels like home. Our second home, maybe.
Our second. I love it. I love the backdrop. I love the backdrop. I love the people that we're going to get to hang out with over the course of the next 45 minutes or so. And yeah, it feels like an hour before face-off here, almost feels like a playoff atmosphere because these teams familiar with each other.
Right.
They've both got some wins off of each other. So both looking for playoff positioning at this point. So this should be a dogfight, a great time, a great night. And, our first live show.
Yeah.
This is great.
Yeah, we are thrilled to be on tonight. Show brought to you, as always, by Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. If you want more info, head to their website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number, 814-734-3433, during normal business hours. Well, I will say this. First and foremost, we want to thank the Erie Otters for having us here tonight. We know it's a busy season. There are a lot of things that go on during the course of the year. But when we talked about wanting to be here, we tried to find a day. We finally picked a day. Little did we know that when we were going to be here, that there would be a flurry of new information and just newness overall for this team. Paul, we've had release after release and some big headlines that have come into this week as they get ready to face the Niagara IceDogs tonight.
From planning this whole thing to actually getting here tonight, a lot has transpired, not only in the hockey world, but specifically the world of the Erie Otters.
Yes.
So we'll get into all that. Looking forward to talking all that. A lot of new coming, potentially some good coming. And this is a team that's kind of on the rebound, looking to make some moves here as we inch toward the end of the regular season.
So let's get into it and talk a little bit about where the Otters are at right now. This is a team a few games above 500, but there has been a big storyline throughout the season. Of course, we knew the news a couple of weeks ago. Head coach Stan Butler fired from the team, reasons not specified. So Erie now is in the midst of looking for a head coach. And they have now found said head coach, hiring yesterday Chris Millette to lead the team. Let's take a look at some of the things that he brings to the table. And we'll talk more about this with Trevor Kubea, broadcaster, coming up in just a moment. Paul, when you look at Chris Millette, the one thing that pops off the page is his experience in the CHL. Of course, the CHL is a league that encompasses the OHL, the Western Hockey League, and other leagues as well. And for head coach Chris Millette, he has been in the WHL with the Kelowna Rockets as a head coach for the last few seasons. He knows junior hockey better than most.
And he's worked with a couple of players on our team, and he's worked with the front office staff here at the Otters. So he's very familiar with not only the game of hockey and the way it's and where it's heading, but some specific pieces on this roster, which makes the transition that much easier.
Yeah, you look at Chris Millette and what he brings to the table. He is a former WHL champ. When he was an assistant coach with the Rockets, he won the title in 2014-2015. He also has coached a couple of former and current Erie Otters, who we'll talk about that in just a moment. So he is a guy that I believe can come into Erie in the middle of February with 19 games left to go in the season. And the way that you look at him, I think he's more of a plug-and-play guy that can probably help this team win now.
I certainly hope so. And like you said, just being able to bring that plug-and-play atmosphere or attitude toward this team who's looking for a little bit of direction after losing a coach midseason, which is tough for any team at any level across the sports world. Getting a guy who's familiar with, I think, not only the players but the front office, kind of coming in and knowing what the GM is looking for, what he's about as a leader of the team. That's going to certainly smooth things over. I'm interested to see when he actually makes his way into the United States and joins this team, which to this point, we're going to have to talk to Trevor. We don't actually know when that is because, like you said, we've got 19 games. This team is in playoff position right now. Obviously, they'd like to stay that way moving forward, but this is a team that has 19 games guaranteed, plus a few more potentially.
And we'll talk a lot more about the playoff push as well as we get ready for the ending part of the season because the Otters are in an interesting spot where it stands right now with 19 games to go. Here is the matchup, IceDogs and the Otters tonight. We're going to get Trevor Kubea in here in just a moment. Erie sitting in third in the Midwest Division. That, in all likelihood, is where they're going to probably end up at. Can't really be any better than second or first with the way the London and Kitchener are playing, but you've got the Otters sitting in third of the Midwest, 25 wins, 20 losses, 4 in overtime or shootout, 54 points. The IceDogs in their Central Division sitting in second. They've got a clean 60, 27, 17, and 6. So we picked a good game to go to as well. This is going to be a fun one because two very good teams jostling for playoff positions in different conferences. And with that, we bring in Trevor Kubea, who is dressed much finer than us tonight, but that's because he's required to because he's calling the game later this evening with Sean Bednard. First of all, Trevor, we were just talking, and you know this firsthand. It has been a roller coaster of a season, and we're not even to the playoffs yet. Take us through, just from an organizational standpoint, what the last couple of weeks has been like leading up now to the Chris Millette hire.
It's been quite the wild season here with the Erie Otters this year, but still a lot of fun. Obviously, I think looking at Connor McDavid retirement night and how special that was and what that night meant to not only us as an organization, but, you know, so many around the Ontario Hockey League, around the Canadian Hockey League. And then obviously everything kind of happened as it did. But leading up to the hire of Chris Millette, I mean, this is a guy who obviously has had just unbelievable experience in the Western Hockey League and beyond. He's going to be a guy who, you know, I think something we've talked a lot about in the office is there's not too many non-comparisons to Chris Knobloch. First of all, they got the same name.
But Erie likes to hire Chris's as head coach.
Two guys that come in from the Western League, kind of the same time of year, not too dissimilar of pedigrees. So obviously that's a pretty big comparison to make, right? But if it turns out even half as good as it did there, you're in a really good spot. So it's been a pretty wild time leading up to things here. But I think knowing, you know, first of all, earlier on this week, knowing what the future of Otters hockey is going to look like is a big time comfort for a lot of us, of course, and our fans. And then to bring in a guy that, as you can see there, obviously has quite the resume to his name and has quite the familiarity with some of these guys is huge.
Let's talk about that because he has coached some current Erie Otters, whether it's Prospect Challenge, whether it's the Helinka Gretzky Cup. So he knows a lot of the guys on this team well, specifically the stars that are going to have to step up come playoff time.
Absolutely. Malcolm Spence and Matthew Schaefer, the two guys that jump out. He coached both of them at the Helinka Gretzky Cup. And you look at Alexei Davio, even a guy he coached back a couple of years ago that is familiar with him and had nothing but great things to say. So many guys. He's reached out to all the guys, talking to a few yesterday, Kerry Tarrant and among others, just kind of introducing himself and getting, you know, set and locked in here in Erie. So I think that familiarity, though, is huge because anytime that you're playing under a coach that you have that level of comfort with, that's huge. And especially, of course, Dave Brown as well and his familiarity working with him, again, at these various Hockey Canada tournaments, CHL USA Top Prospects Challenge, all of these allowing him to, again, come in here and really settle in right away.
Go ahead, Paul.
I was going to say familiarity is huge with anytime you join a new team. Familiarity may be even more important when you're joining the team mid-season or 2/3 of the way through the season. How much of that played into the actual hiring of Millette?
I think, you know, he's actually been through a very similar situation. His very first year as a head coach in Kelowna, kind of the same thing where they promote him to the head coach role the year that they were going to host the Memorial Cup. Obviously, COVID had a little bit to play, but there was 14 games left in the season. He became the head coach there. Very similar. Here we are. It appears he's going to take charge in Owen Sound on Friday night. So that would mean 18 games left in the season.
Yeah.
So you look ahead to what that could look like down the stretch. And I think it's really interesting because you bring in a guy that part of the season. Obviously, this is the most important time of the year. You always want to be playing your best hockey going into the playoffs. So you bring him in. He mentioned yesterday in media availability that there's just a couple of tweaks that he wants to set up. But the way he put it was this team has good bones. There's a lot to work with here with this group, with what they're already doing systematically. And I think he's going to slot in very well alongside Ken Peroff and Wes Wolf.
Let's talk about some of those slight adjustments, because I think all up until the Stan Butler firing, Erie was the defensive team, try to grind out victories. And then, of course, Matthew Schaefer gets hurt, and that somewhat changes your philosophy with defense. What are some of those changes that you may see as a fan Chris Millette bring to the team that may help them come playoff time?
I think kind of similar to what you just mentioned there. It's one thing he talked a lot about yesterday was just tightening up in the defensive zone, being better with the puck in the defensive zone. Again, if you watch games, there's been a lot of defensive zone turnovers that have really cost the team. I think that's one thing he's really going to emphasize is taking better care of the puck and making sure you're not, turning it over in a crucial spot, right? There's been a handful of games. I think another thing that he's going to want to emphasize, and I think has already been quite an emphasis, but hasn't really been acted upon from a player standpoint recently, is discipline. Too many penalties have been taken by this group, and it's cost the penalty kill. They lost a whole percent after the game on Friday last week in Brampton. Gained that a little bit back with a really good day on Saturday against Sudbury. So hopefully, again, you don't want to see them too much, but when they're out there, hopefully they can continue to keep things rolling, because systematically they're doing a lot of things right with Ken Peroff. It's just, unfortunately, just again, turnovers, just at times puck mismanagement has cost them team. But again, I think there's a lot of things to be really excited about, not only with this player group, because you look up and down the lineup. Forward depth is the strength of this hockey team, right? You look, there's 4 lines that can hurt you on every night. And I think a guy like Tyler Challenger, too, first-round pick, starting to finally find his feet at the OHL level, that has meant a lot to this group, too. And again, really just adding to that forward depth. So they're good there. I think if they can continue to get depth scoring, tighten things up defensively, that's what Coach Millette's going to look to do.
It's so interesting because last year, I remember Ryan Zapolsky and I did our live show, now the goaltending coach for the Otters, and we ended the season by saying the special teams was a concern. They need to rectify that. Now they're trying to do that with Chris Millette, and it seems like they're starting to get there. And last year, we ended the season by saying, okay, there's one line that really totes the offense, that leads the offense more so than anybody else.
Right.
And 2 of the guys who were on that line last year are now leading the offense again this year, whether it's Malcolm Spence, whether it's Pano Femis, Sam Alfano, the 2 guys specifically. How good has that line been in down the stretch part of the season, Trevor?
Well, what's actually been interesting is that's probably not even been the best line over these last couple of weeks. It's been the Gabriel Frasca, Wesley Royston, Callum Hughes line. I think that just goes to show the testament. Of course, Hughesy is out of the lineup tonight, so he will not be with us here this evening, banged up a little bit last week. So hopefully he can get back soon, because he's been just a fantastic piece for this team. But yeah, that line has been good, and I think they've been getting better. Pano Femis was unbelievable on Saturday night against the Sudbury Wolves, and Sam Alfano, he's probably going to score 40 goals this year.
He's at 30.
You want to talk about just an unreal, I guess, a half a goal a game, right, is what he would need down the stretch, basically, for Sam Alfano. But those 2 guys have been terrific over the course of the season. But again, I think it's a testament to the forward depth and just how much some of the other lines have stood out. These guys are doing everything right. They're doing their job. They're still producing, but it's been some of those other guys that have still jumped to the forefront.
Schaefer not playing, going back to all the way to December 8th is the last time we saw him in an Otters uniform. A lot of younger defenders having to step up lately. Who do you think has stepped up the most, and who do you think still needs to step up here as we have 19 games to play?
Yeah, that December 8th game, I remember it well. It was a Sunday afternoon in Brampton. He's made one of the most unbelievable passes to set up Malcolm Spence I've ever seen. So hopefully he'll be back soon. But
he's a talent.
He's unbelievable. He's so much fun to watch. Makes my job easy. He certainly he's given me a few to put on the reel for sure. So, but no, I think some of the guys that have stepped up, I've really liked Lucas Ambrosio's game. 2nd round pick this season. He is a 16-year-old who plays like he's been in this league a couple of years. He's not going to do anything too flashy, but just a solid shutdown, stay-at-home defenseman. The other guy who has just been magnificent and has really kind of carried the mail in the absence of Schaefer has been Quinn McCall. This is a Holy Cross commit, came over from the Brooks Bandits of the British Columbia Hockey League, a part of the NCAA deal, and or I guess ruling more than deal. So they bring him over, and he's just been phenomenal for the Otters. He's eating up half an hour a game. The Matthew Schaefer type minutes he's been getting, and so good defensively. He can add the offense. He's been adding a little more offense recently. Just sat down with him on our podcast, Off the Record, talked to him about just kind of what the season's been like for him, and obviously the transition. The one thing he said, though, is, hey, look, I don't need to be an offensive force here. We've got a great group of forwards. My job is to get the puck to them, but now he's starting to show that, hey, I can provide a little bit of offense. It's been fun to see.
I want to talk about that for just a second, because when the ruling came down, I think everyone rejoiced, whether you're with the team, whether you follow the team, because this has been a long time coming. Really, it should have been instituted when the OHL was created and when the Canadian Hockey League was created. But Trevor, you guys, lots of teams in the league now have these import players. And yes, they're rentals. They're only going to be here for a season. But how does that impact, I'm sure in a positive way, the way the team can go about getting guys to fill out the depth of the lineup? Because it now seems like there's an opportunity, more so than previous years, for if you need to fill a void, you can go pick up someone whenever to make sure that void's filled.
Well, and I think to that point, you look at the trade market this season and what number of picks and number of assets you were giving up to bring in an OHL player. These guys are coming over. They're basically free. Yeah. You're getting a great player for, a fraction of what you're paying in terms of your future draft capital, and they're contributing at the same level. Yeah. I mean, Quinn McCall has just been unbelievable. Garrett Fraser adding a physical presence and, again, kind of filling out this Otters decor. Again, he's a guy that I think has added so much to this group. And Callum Hughes, again, anytime you got a guy who's committed to Boston University, obviously they're going to be a pretty darn good player for you. So Cal has been, again, just fantastic. So these three guys, and Otters general manager Dave Brown has done an unbelievable job going into that market and saying, you know what? This rule's here. Why not take advantage of it? Why not bring some of these guys in? And I think it's been great for not only our game at this level, but it's going to be so good for the NCAA. And I think give it 5 years' time, the NHL game is going to benefit from it too, because these guys are getting this unbelievable experience and development at this level. They go on to college playing a very different style of game, but also I think that's just going to better prepare them for what the National Hockey League is going to offer. So I think the only thing I want to see change, let's get rid of the cages in college. Let's go with the visors there, because it's got to be weird for some of these guys. You go from playing junior and you can just rock the visor, and then you got to go with the cage.
I just think it makes celebrations more exciting when you can actually see your face when you do a celly or something like that. I'm with you on there, Trevor.
I get that. Can I transition into tonight's game? I want to talk about the IceDogs.
Let's do it. Heck yeah.
I didn't know if you had any more questions.
This is great.
There's 17,000 questions we have written up, able to ask about every aspect of this organization from the top down.
We are an unscripted show tonight.
Literally. we got about 40 minutes until puck drop. I want to talk about the Niagara IceDogs. Otters 2-1 this season against this club, both fifth in their respective conferences. Erie took the first two, the first one back on November the 7th, and then they played two times over the course of 3 days. Erie took the first one in a tight 1-3-2. Niagara got us back 6-3 on their home ice 2 days later on the 26th of January. Where is this team now versus where they were on the 26th of January, and what do we see coming into tonight? I know you're going to use the word physicality about half a dozen times.
That's what we've seen in those couple of matchups, but this is an IceDogs team that's coming in. They're beaten up right now. They've won 1 in their last 8, and this is after they've spent most of the season tops in the Eastern Conference. So
I think Erie was their last win.
Am I wrong on that? That is correct. Wow. That was their only win in their last 8 games.
I saw 2-8 in their last 10.
Otters. So it's been a rough go for the IceDogs. They've just not had the same type of, I don't know, just mojo about their game. And I'm really interested to see tonight, because one of the things I love about sports is when you play a team, you get to, of course, for us, getting to interact with everybody and just kind of hearing it. And I think every game tells a story. You learn so much about each team every single night. And I'm really excited to learn about the Niagara IceDogs. What's going wrong for Niagara and why? Because you look at the team, they're not the deepest squad in the OHL. They've got a really good top line with Ryan Robrick, Ethan Zada, Kevin He. Those are guys that have really, really been unbelievable. Of course, Robrick will probably be a first-round pick next year, late birthday, so has that extra year before the NHL draft. Kevin He, I think, going to be a great value for a fourth-round pick of the Winnipeg Jets this past year. Those guys, and Ethan Zada, this is his draft year this year. Those are the guys that are going to stand out. Owen Flores in between the pipes as well, former London Knight. He's been pretty good against the Otters, but he's facing 40 shots a game. It's been just not good enough defensively for Niagara. So I think that's one thing the Otters will look to exploit here tonight. Obviously, they know this team well. Because you see them so often. Haven't seen, it was 2-3 weeks ago last time they met. So you understand, your opponent here tonight. It's not like you're like Sudbury, for example. You see them twice a season. You just kind of, there's a lot more to learn about your opponent. Where tonight, this is a team you know how to play, you know how to beat them. Now it's up to the Otters to get the job done here tonight.
It's so interesting, too, because of all the guys you mentioned, and I don't know the specific stats on this, but it seemed like last year the one guy that probably single-handedly kept the Otters from a home playoff series was Alex Asadorian, because he was scoring shorty after shorty after shorty against Erie. He leads the team in goals coming into this game, so he'll be another guy to look at as well. Trevor, when you look at the rest of the schedule down the stretch, and then we'll let you go because I know you got a lot of things happening tonight. This is going to be an interesting week for Erie. They have to play Niagara. Then you've got Windsor and Kitchener on the horizon. How important is this stretch going to be for Erie in the next, let's even say 5 to 6 games, knowing that you've got Chris Millette coming on Friday?
Absolutely. So, you head to Owen Sound on Friday. And again, you've got what a busy stretch, right? 4 games in 6 days starts tonight. So it's up to these guys. Again, the conditioning is such a big part of it. It's been a strange schedule. You have the school day game mixed in there. You have, again, all of these, a lot going on outside the locker room. And now that it feels like there's going to be a little bit of an element of stability with Chris Millette coming in. And I'm really excited to see what he's going to bring to this group. But this is a really important stretch because you obviously want to play your best hockey headed toward the postseason. I think the biggest goal for this team is home ice advantage in the playoffs. Getting that 4 seed, that shows progress from last year. You had the 5th seed last season. If you can get to that 4 seed, that would be massive.
And again, it's a battle between 2 American teams right now then for that 4 seed. So every game important. And it's important, too, for Trevor because he's doing double duty with us tonight. Hey, man, great stuff as always. You're doing amazing things with the Otters, and we can't wait to see what you do next through the rest of the year. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us. This has been fun.
Absolutely, guys. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Anytime, man.
Thank you for coming on. I listen to your stuff all the time. It's really cool to meet the person. I see the face for the first time because I've heard your voice for so long. So it's really nice to put a face to a name and a voice. Thank you for joining me.
I was going to say the highlight reel is probably 7 or 8 minutes with this guy. He's got a lot of stuff. Hey, leave that mic there for us if you don't mind. Tim Quinn's going to join us in a few minutes, and then he'll bring up your mic. I know it's a really good one, so we'll take good care of it. Great stuff as always. Trevor Kubea, Otters broadcaster, joining us on our podcast tonight. Our podcast is always brought to you by Rebich Investments, keeping financial guidance simple. For more info, head over to the website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply call their phone number because phones still exist in this day and age. 814-734-3433 is that number to dial. We have just scratched the surface on this podcast, and yet Trevor did a great job of taking us through things. Man, what a season for this team so far.
A roller coaster of emotions. I think Sean Bednar called it ebbs and flows, and that's kind
a kind way to put it.
I was just going to say that's a gentle way of putting what this team has gone through this year. But I think they're in a flow right now. I think flow would be good, right? Ebb, down, flow, up.
Sure.
Okay.
And again, the nice breaking news that maybe we got a chance to break here. I'm not sure if it was announced, but it looks like Chris Millette will be joining the team in Owen Sound
as soon as this Friday
night, which would be huge because, again, you look at Owen Sound coming up, and then you've got a couple of big games against Windsor, against Kitchener, 2 of the top teams in their respective conferences. And for Kitchener, the team above you in the division, you're probably not going to catch the Kitchener Rangers. But, it's interesting because we left Trevor with talking about the standings. And if you're the Otters, not that you could make an amazing run down the stretch, but likely 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is out of contention in the Western Conference. London, Kitchener, Windsor have those 3 spots pretty much wrapped up.
Yeah.
And now if you're the Otters, after Saginaw got a big win just recently, you're sitting in a position where you're 5th in the conference.
Correct.
Saginaw is probably going to be your opponent unless Flint was able to make a run here. So it's going to likely be an American versus an American in the first round.
Correct.
And that makes home ice advantage so important because this American rivalry between Erie, Saginaw, Erie, Flint it's starting to get really interesting.
Absolutely. And as the season goes along, another thing, having the new coach coming in, not only that, you're going to have some players coming back from injury. So this team playing a little shorthanded recently. We talked about it a little earlier in the week. A lot of the guys who are getting reps now, getting minutes now, they're going to be key depth pieces as they move into the postseason. And as you know, hockey gets faster, it gets rougher, it gets tougher. Defense really big as you get to those end games. And guys getting on the ice now, so it's getting real. This is awesome, man. But yeah, a lot of change coming, a lot of good potentially coming for the Erie Otters. I hope they're able to ride this wave of positivity into the end of March.
Because again, they only have 19 games left, so there's still a lot of time left, but the games are getting fewer and further between here on this Wednesday evening. And again, so excited to be with you here on this Wednesday night. Otters and Niagara IceDogs dropping the puck in about 35 minutes. And the man who probably has the best view of all of it is this guy to our left, dapper in the black suit with the pink tie, Tim Quinn, the rinkside reporter for the Erie Otters. First and foremost, man, congratulations on the position. We haven't had a chance to talk very often, but I'm sure for you, a lot of excitement getting to be in between the glass, listening to what the players are saying.
Oh, my God, absolutely. It's been so much fun to be here, and that's what I've been able to tell people when they ask me, like, how has this job been for you? How has your time with the Otters been? It has just been so much fun. Every night, it renews my love of not only hockey, it renews my love of broadcasting. I'm sitting there, and I get to talk to these players who have such an incredible future ahead of them, and they are just so kind. That's been the most surprising thing to me is when I talk to them. You know, I have the earpiece in, and I'm like, all right, Sean, sending it down here in 15 seconds, and they're like, all right, man, I'm Malcolm Spence. Nice to meet you. All right, hey, I'm Tim. Nice to meet you too. It's something you don't always get. So these guys, even the opposing team, we got the chance to interview Michael Misa from the Saginaw Spirit,
Nice.
Top round pick coming up in the NHL draft, superstar in his own right.
Yes.
Took his glove off, introduced himself. Certainly didn't have to do that for a 15-second spot for the opposing team's broadcast. So it's been so exciting. I've been a part of some incredible nights here, some incredible moments between my first night being a little bit of a bittersweet night with the Winter Wonderland night, my first night on the job, but also the passing of Mr. Waters the day before, and he was somebody that I've heard nothing but incredible things about. And then, my next game, I get to work with Connor McDavid and interview him.
Talk about ebbs and flows. I was going to say, what a way to kick things off.
Absolutely. So it's been so exciting.
Let's reminisce for a second on the Connor McDavid jersey retirement, because I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about that. His jersey literally hangs from the rafters just above us here at the Erie Insurance Arena. His 97 is still painted in blue on the blue lines on either side. What was that night like? I mean, first and foremost, for him to be able to come back in person, not easy with the schedule that he has to maintain. And I'm sure for you and for so many others, that was one night you'll never forget.
Absolutely. That's what I knew going into it, is that, like, hey, I will never forget this night, right? This is going to be the biggest night in my career to this point, maybe for a long time to come. And so I kind of went in with that same sort of excitement, right, where I was like, I don't even really have to be nervous for this, because, hey, Sean and Trevor do all the heavy lifting. I'm just kind of showing up and
you're just going to work 15 seconds at a time.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like,
shake hands and kiss babies.
Exactly.
I like it.
So I kind of knew going in, this was just gonna have fun with it, enjoy your time, and if you get a moment to talk to him, to be a part of the night a little bit, then take that, and that's what it kind of was. So that was it truly was a night that I'll never forget. That was awesome.
Let's talk about the Otters for a second, because, I mean, again, you have that firsthand, not just bird's eye view, but you got a view right inside the glass. When you look at this team, we talked to Trevor about the makeup of the team, and we know, of course, Chris Millette will come in and implement his style. Take me through some of the players that maybe aren't the stars, but guys who you think have been stepping up and maybe will be key down the stretch for this team.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, obviously you have those superstars on this team, right? And that's what's impressive to me, is I see these guys so young come in and just be absolute superstars. They yearn for the spotlight, right? Those are the guys like your Sam Alfanos, right? Who has, gotten a point or a goal in every game that I've worked to this point. I'm not saying I'm this good luck charm.
I mean, hey,
I'm not saying
you better knock on some wood somewhere, my friend.
But he's been an absolute superstar, of course. You got Terrance and Pano Femus. A guy that's really impressed me day in and day out is Marty Mishiak. And he's not somebody that puts up those, 60, 70, 80 points to this point in the season, right? He's coming up, I think, on 40 points right now. but shows up every single day with some fire to get out on the ice, and works hard every single shift. I actually got to talk to him. I know you and Trevor were just talking about the school day game a little bit, and I got to talk to him because we had a delay in that game. So I get to talk to him before that. And I was just like, hey, we got a little rain delay going on right now for the boards.
Yeah.
Like, what's up, man? And on air, I just kind of got to riff with him a little bit. So guys like that impress me so much. Yeah.
What's been your favorite interaction so far? Not favorite person, but something that you didn't realize, like didn't expect. Good interaction.
Well, outside of that Connor McDavid night.
Obviously.
Yeah,
you meet the best player currently in the world. Okay,
right,
that's a number one.
Right.
So number two.
Number two. Well, I did have an incredible moment with Connor where we were back in the tunnel right before he goes out for the jersey retirement, and he's standing alone because his wife was there. His wife had just walked off to talk to his Bill family, and I was probably from me to Isaac away from him, and I was like, I can just go up and talk to him, right?
Yeah, why not?
Let me just go up and talk to the greatest hockey player on earth. And so I went over and I was like, "How you feeling, man?" And it's like, it's I'm excited. I usually hate this sort of a thing, and I got to kind of have a moment with him. He came back after it and then signed the back of my jersey.
Oh, that's cool.
Wearing the McDavid jersey on the broadcast. So that was awesome. That's something I'll have forever.
Wearing a McDavid jersey on a broadcast, cheesy, man. Cheesy move.
It was unbelievable. But outside of that, I mean, there's been so many cool interviews, whether it's the Otters, whether it's a different team like that Michael Misa interview.
Nice.
Right? I talked to Malcolm Spence after the school day game. He had the shootout winner, and I got to chat him up a little bit and just be like, what's going through your head right now?
You got all mental
these
space at the time.
Yeah. It was like, dude, you have 5,400 kids here from local schools looking up to you as an absolute hero right now. Like, how's that feel for you? And so moments like that are so cool, and I get so excited for it every single day.
It's cool to have him on. It's cool for him to be where he is. It's not often that in the OHL or the CHL you have a guy inside the glass. Not going to specify who takes credit for that idea, but there was somebody on this podcast who brought that up a year ago, and he's the man to do it. Let's just talk about the season as a whole.
Sure.
Put yourself in Chris Millet's shoes for a second, because he's not coming until Friday, we were told by Trevor. If there is one or two things that this team is going to have to shore up, get better at, to be able to, A, get that fourth seed, and B, win at least a playoff run, what would that be?
Yeah, and I know I was listening in for when Trevor was here, and you guys had talked about the grittiness of the defense when Schaefer was still playing and active. And I think, maybe we got away from that a little bit, and you got to provide for these superstar goalies, right? Erlid and Burns, they are the guys that are going to keep you in hockey games. When I was opening the broadcast a couple of weeks ago now, Trevor asked me a similar question, which was like, what do we need to do? And you got to stay tough in front of these guys. These are the guys that are going to keep you in the game. They're going to win you a couple games as well. So you got to provide for them a little bit. So I think, really being able to D up in front of them, not letting them face 40, 50, 60 shots, whatever it is, and letting them have that busy night. I think if we're able to flip that, and something that Niagara hasn't been able to do recently is keep those shots away from their netminders, right? That's why they're struggling so bad. They were losers of their last 4, one of their last 8 being the Otters. But you got to kind of flip that around, right? Not let Erlid and not let Burns face 40 shots. You got to put 40 shots on net. So I think turning that around is huge.
Huge game tonight.
When Millet shows up on Friday, you're between the pipes. You hear the coaches, you hear the players during the game play. Who do you believe that Coach Millet will soon lean on this Otters team to be the vocal leader of this team?
That's a great question. That's been something that was, I guess, kind of unexpected when I came into the role, was being able to hear the players, hear the coaches, right? Hear the officials give the reasoning as to why something is a goal, not a goal, call it like a specific penalty. Hear the frustrations from either side, and also see the leaders step up. And one of these was, I forget exactly what game it was a number of weeks ago here in January. Otters were down maybe 2-3-0 in the first period. And I saw assistant coach Wes Wolf, who was the acting head coach at the time, just kind of say, hey, it's your choice. You can either get back into this game, or you can go back into your shells and hide away for the rest of it. It's up to you guys. And that is a moment to me that is so special as a coach, because you're relying on your leaders, right? You're saying, hey, we have got some of these leaders. Let's see what they do with some slack. And that's where you see guys like the captain, Kerry Terrance, right? Who in my household call him an American hero, U.S. gold medalist, absolute weapon.
For sure.
Super great guy. I love talking to him. whenever I can get the chance. But that's why he wears the C, right?
Yes.
Because you can lean on him in those times of need, and he'll be there for you. He goes out there, gets the penalty shot, goal, fires things up, ties the game in the third period, sends them to overtime. Vocally too, he's on the bench, stands up, looks left and right, just being like, hey, let's go. We got this. Stay in it. Stay tight. Stay together. It's been super, super cool stuff like that.
Awesome.
19 games to go, and yet it still feels like we got a lot of season left to go, and Tim's going to be right there every step of the way, and he's going to certainly be here for playoffs as well, and we'll have you back, I'm sure, man, at that point. Maybe we can get inside the glass for our next putt.
I was going to say, how close can we get to the ice?
Oh, yeah, you guys
how tight is it in there?
It's a little tight. You could probably fit two or three of me right in the glass there.
Okay.
But I'm in there with a couple of the equipment managers and stuff as well.
We don't need those guys. We can
exactly.
We'll be fine. Pass out towels. We'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll be all right.
But that spot is awesome, man. Especially when you get that packed crowd in here. These fans are unlike anything I've really seen in hockey or in sports before. Where I have such a good spot on the ice, right? Where everything kind of, I don't want to say revolves around me, but the sound, is right in my face basically when we score. They go skating by. People are screaming.
Yeah.
People are screaming, maybe when we give up a goal as well. And you hear kind of both sides of it. But there's certainly some room in there. We can get you guys in.
Let the record show tonight that if there is an open job for an in-ring reporter for ESPN or other networks, that we got a man in a nice suit over here that would do great in that role. Hey, man, enjoy the game tonight. Thanks again for coming on. This has been awesome, and we're loving what you're doing with the Otters.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. It's good to catch up with you. Good to meet you.
Yeah, thank you. Best of luck.
Keep going,
Thank you. Thank you, guys. You're the best.
Tim Quinn, Inside Rink reporter, joining us. You can take that mic with you because otherwise I think Trevor's probably going to be upset that we steal it. Here's one more time the matchup, the Otters and the IceDogs. Drop of the puck at 7 o'clock as we get ready for what's going to be an exciting matchup coming up tonight at 7. We talked a lot already on this show here on the Gem City Sports Podcast, brought to you by Rebich Investments. And if you don't know Rebich Investments, well, you should probably know Rebich Investments because they do a lot of things well and they keep financial guidance simple. If you want more info, head to the website, www.rebichinvestments.com, or you can simply give their phone number a call during normal business hours. That number to dial is 814-734-3433. Again, that number is 814-734-3433. All right, a little dark here. The ice is kind of illuminating us, but that's okay. We're still here. We're still having fun.
Silhouetted with this background, it could be a lot worse.
You'd rather watch the ice than you'd rather listen to us talk. I was going to say, they got warm-ups going on right now and everything in the Otters in those sweet little warm-up jerseys. One of the things I love, by the way, about minor league sports is that there are warm-up jerseys and different sort of jerseys for every single game, it seems like it. And that's a really neat and really cool thing. All right. What have we not talked about so far that you think we really need to hit on? Because I feel like we've talked a lot about the team, but really the question is going to be down the stretch. Can they get into that number 4 seed?
I was going to say, the thing left to talk about is, and it's not like we haven't talked about it, it's getting into tonight's game. Who are going to be the players? What do we expect from both sides? How is this game ultimately decided?
Yeah.
I think Trevor made the great point about the goaltending is going to be big for this one.
Yeah.
Owen Flores giving up 3.84 goals per game. Noah Erliden projected to get the start tonight, giving up 3.25. So if all things hold true, Erie's looking good in that regard. But as we know, defense is huge. This has been a physical matchup in each of the previous 3 games. So who's feeling good? Who's the fresher team? Who takes the hit early? Or a guy who might have been the guy, but he's kind of hurting because in the third period because he took a big hit in the first period.
Yeah.
Stuff like that is going to be the difference in this game. And if I'm Erie, boy, I'm looking at Pano Fimis as going to be one of the big time games, big time names in this game. He leads the team with 7 first goals. Okay, so it would be nice to get off to a hot start.
Get a 1-0 lead.
Get a 1-0 lead. You get the big crowd coming out. Puck drop, everybody's excited at 7:02 p.m. You get a run, you make a play early, you get up, and then you play with a little more confidence, I think, throughout the contest. Once you get up early, try to get 2 in a row. As my brother always said, 2-0 in hockey is the most dangerous lead in sports, but it's I would rather be up to 2-0 than down 0-2.
Oh, 100%. I think it's interesting because Trevor mentioned this a little bit on the earlier part in the podcast, but for me, and this is where we ended last season when we talked about the Otter season ending, for me was special teams. I think it was 2 things. It was depth and special teams. Otters struggled last year on the power play. Down the stretch, they struggled on the penalty kill. They really didn't have a lot of success in that series against Kitchener. And you make the argument, if they get even maybe 2 or 3 more power play goals, they probably win that series in 6 or 7. 3 of the games went to overtime. And so at least 3, I think maybe 4. But when you look at the game tonight for Erie, I think you got to stay out of the penalty box, number one.
Yes.
The biggest thing you can do to give a team that's struggling momentum is give them a power play. And I think if Niagara's able to get 4 or 5 power plays tonight, if you're the Otters, that's 8-10 minutes that you're not able to play 5-on-5, and then you probably get behind early in the game, and it's a different story. And I think that the momentum is there. And I think also, too, the key for the Otters, and we mentioned this a bit as well, is the goaltending and the defense. I think you made a really good point where it starts with the goaltending with Noah Erliden. But then if you're Erie, and this has been a really big point of contention with Matthew Schaefer out, can you hang on? We talked about this on Monday on the podcast. Can you hang on until Schaefer comes back?
Correct.
If indeed it is the end of the month of February that he comes back, how long can you stay afloat and in contention for the 4th seed until he returns? It's an interesting predicament Erie's in because you're not likely going to fall further than 5, and you're probably not going to be any better than 4th. So if you're the Otters right now, the runway, the finish line's in front of you. You know what you're playing for. And if you're Erie right now, every game matters, especially these games against the big teams, because standings-wise, you've got to win these big games.
Absolutely. And you know, the mentality has to be the same. You got to play with the guys who are there, and you got to take it one game at a time. So the most important game this season is for the Otters is the game tonight. We'll worry about Friday on Friday. We'll worry about Sunday on Sunday. But tonight we got to win this game in order to make the next game, feasible and count. One of the guys you mentioned, goaltending obviously is going to be very important.
Right.
Erliden has struggled recently. Gave up 9 goals, I think, on, was it Saturday?
Yeah,
or Friday?
He has, I believe, in his last 8, he's given up at least 3 goals or more in the
I
last 7
think he said he's averaging like
games.
six or so in the last 10 or something along those lines. It hasn't been a good stretch for him. But one of the players I think is going to be that's going to show up big in this game, and another guy that Trevor mentioned, Tyler Challenger, last year's first-round pick. Does a good job bodying on defense. He can score. He scored in the last matchup against Niagara, so not something he's unfamiliar with. And a guy that was looking to, in the last couple of weeks, really make the most of his reps. Once again, this is a first-round pick. This is a guy you expect to come in and contribute. If not immediately, you want to say early. We're better than halfway through year 2, so this is a guy that I think it's fair to say that this is a guy that you need to start to be able to depend on. And he's shown flashes of being that. I think he needs to be a little bit more consistent. He's played well against Niagara previously. I think tonight will be a big night for him.
I'll tell you what, when you look at the grand scope of this season for the Otters, and not that you want to make excuses for a team, because nobody cares what you go through during a season. They care if you put up wins or losses.
Yep.
But for this team to still be above 500 with everything that has gone on, with Mr. Waters passing, with the firing of Stan Butler, now a new head coach, Connor McDavid.
And the injuries.
And even a good distraction with the Connor McDavid jersey retirement for everything that they put into that, and deservedly so.
A lot of emotional energy expended pre-game.
I think you look at this team this year, and you have to like where they're at, where they're in a position to potentially host a playoff round. I think you make the argument that as long as this team is able to adjust pretty quickly to Chris Millette, their best hockey days are in front of them.
Oh, I agree.
You knock on wood and you hope that there are no other big surprises that happen throughout the course of the season. But in theory now, the peaks and the valleys are behind you. And while you want to hit a peak if you're the Otters, what you really want is consistency. And I think if this Otters team can even, 19 games left to go, you're looking at a scenario where if you can win 11 or 12 of them, you're probably hosting a first-round playoff.
Agreed. Looking at the coaching situation and the Otters being set up potentially for success, you never like to see a coach leave a team in the manner that Stan Butler unfortunately had to leave Erie. But I do think they're in a good position, and they put themselves in a good position. They hired a coach with 30-plus years of OHL experience. Yeah. He came in, he taught this organization, he taught this roster and a lot of these assistant coaches and front office staff how to be professionals, how to win in this league at this level, the necessary input that it takes, right? Out goes Stan Butler, maybe a personality issue. You bring in a younger coach who has experience with the front office and some of these star players who's had success at multiple different levels, and he's going to bring in a more a futuristic approach to scheme and how to play hockey nowadays and the way that the game of hockey is moving. So I think the Otters position themselves well, where we're at, we're kind of in that lull in between two, what I think will be very good coaches for this franchise, but the arrow was pointing up for the Erie Otters.
And keep in mind, Trevor made a great point when he was on a little bit earlier.
Half a dozen of them.
That, well, yeah, almost all of the points were
Right.
great points. But similar to the Chris Knobloch hiring, younger head coach with experience in and around junior hockey, who brings that futuristic mindset.
Correct.
And I also think, too, has a very calm demeanor to him. I don't know if Chris Millet's going to come in and go guns a-blazing because, as he knows and as we've discussed, this team is talented enough to compete in the postseason. They have the top-line talent. That third line, as we mentioned, led by Frasca in the middle, is going to be something to be concerned about for other teams. So you're starting to establish that depth. It's not like you have to change a whole lot. You don't have to change your appearance. You just have to enhance it with makeup, and I think that's something that Chris Millet can do.
I like the way you
like
put
the
that.
reference? That's about
like
the only reference I could think of.
So here's what I was trying to think about is from Chris Millet's perspective is, hey, I've got a team that's coming. He's in a good position, just coming off a gold medal, 3 straight gold medals with the club he's currently at, 2 as an assistant coach, 1 as a head coach this past year.
Yeah.
So this is a guy who just got a promotion and just experienced the highest level of success he was able to at his previous post. So a team comes along more than halfway through a season. You're familiar with part of the roster. You have to take a look at that team, and as a professional, you got to look at, honestly, what's best for me.
Yeah.
So the Erie Otters were a nice promotion for Coach Millet, but he had to take a look at this roster and say, is this actually going to be a good fit for me? Do I like the makeup of this team? Do I like the makeup of the front office? Do I like where this team is headed? And to say yes to all of those things and to take over when he did and to go through the challenges that he's obviously going to go through. He doesn't get a whole offseason to implement a plan and get his guys and put in his system on both ends of the ice and maybe handpick a goalie or a player or two. He's coming into a roster where he's half familiar with, new building, new city, and he looked at the whole opportunity and said, yeah, I think I can make this work. So I think that speaks about the state of the franchise as much as it speaks about Chris Millet wanting to take the job.
And let's be honest, and I think we come full circle with this. For a Canadian coach to take a job in an American city in junior hockey, you have to really like what you see. Because it is not often that you are willing to move countries to coach a team that's not in professional hockey and in professional sports in general. So for Chris Millet, clearly, like you said, he likes what he sees, and I think he sees a future, too, with the team. Maybe as Chris Knobloch did when he came to Erie, because I think he probably could have his pick of other jobs, too. And I think when you come full circle with this, and this is how we'll close the show, really, as big as the coaching announcement was, the biggest announcement this week, in my view, for the Otters was the Waters family choosing to step up and wanting to keep this franchise in Erie.
Agreed.
Anytime that something like this happens, and God rest his soul, Jim Waters passing away, you worry, okay, the OHL is a league in Canada. Do you move your team away? We saw the Erie Bayhawks go a few years ago. As much as we want to believe that these are stable organizations, they can move at any time.
Yes.
And so to be able to have the Waters come out and say, we're committed to keeping the team in Erie, we'll put the funds in to make it happen, we'll put the renovations that are needed and whatnot to make it happen, and then to couple that with the Chris Millet hiring, it shows that this team is committed to stay in Erie, and they're also committed to continue to win championships in Erie. And, again, it's been now 8 years since they've won one. What a ride it would be if they could end up with a championship this season with everything that happened. But at least there's positive news for the future that hockey's here to stay in Erie.
Absolutely. 1,000% to everything you just said. The family coming out and essentially doubling down on we are committed to not only this team, but to the city of Erie, to this community, I think was big for the fans, maybe more so than the team itself, but letting the fan base know that, hey, we're taking this thing seriously. We experienced a hardship, but we're going to we're going to motor through this. I think some family members are going to move into the business office. So the family taking a personal investment in the team, moving it into the next phase, I think is huge for the community.
It's going to be great to see Otters hockey staying in Erie, and there's still 19 games left to go in the season. I know we say that, and we know it's coming to an end quick, but we're going to have playoffs here as well. And we want to let you know this show for us was super exciting.
Oh, my gosh, it went by so fast.
We missed Nick Artman here. He's off doing some fun business endeavors and, too important for us tonight. No, we're kidding. We love him. We love him. We're happy to have him back, and we hope that as we move forward through here, getting into playoffs, that we can do this again.
I was just going to say, I'll see you in the playoffs in the same spot.
Right, exactly. Same spot.
Or maybe down in between the pipes.
I was going to say, if Tim can get us in there, we may not even need the table. We'll just hold up a handheld camera or phone and we'll make it work.
With it.
But this has been great tonight. We again want to thank the Erie Otters for making this possible. Sean Bednar, Trevor Kubea, they are great hosts. They are wonderful at what they do and make anything accommodating as much as they possibly can. So thank you to them. Thank you to all of you for taking a few minutes to watch us tonight. This has been a lot of fun, and it's something we hope to do more often, whether it be with high school sports, whether it be with the Otters, with the Seawolves coming up in April as well. I'm so excited for all that, too. And, hey, the greatest thing about this is we get to take in a hockey game coming up.
I was just going to say, after we sign off here, all I'm going to do is just turn around. And I'm going to be here for another 2.5 hours. So, yeah, this is great. It was a lot of fun.
Hey, thanks again for being a part of our show tonight. We'll leave you with the final marks of the pregame show before the Otters take on the Niagara IceDogs. If you haven't been out to a game, make sure you come out to a game. And by the way, also want to mention as well, we're going to be giving away a 4-pack of tickets. We did it on Monday's show, and we're doing it again tonight. Make sure after this broadcast to like, subscribe, comment on this post, on this podcast, or send us a DM. Your favorite Otters memory. Send us a few lines of what you love from the Otters. Send us a picture. If you have a Connor McDavid picture, you might be more apt to potentially win this. We'll pick the best one, and the winner of that will be mailed 4 free Otters tickets for an upcoming home game. So make sure you give us a like, give us a follow, and subscribe to the Gem City Sports Podcast Network. We are back in studio tomorrow. Paul is going to hit the road, but I am going to be with Tom Koval tomorrow night talking some high school basketball. And then Paul's draft podcast is Friday night to cap your week. If you have not seen that, you should, because you're getting into the deep dive. And I also heard some breaking
running
news.
Backs.
I heard some breaking news before the show that we already have hotel and lodging accommodations for the 2026 draft in Pittsburgh.
We will be in Pittsburgh for the 2026 draft. You can believe that. Yes, sir. So
something to look forward to. Put it on your calendar about 1.5 years or so from now. All right, we're done here. Enjoy the game tonight. Thanks again for spending some time with us, and we'll see you all tomorrow night. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.